Have you ever had an experience that you just cannot explain? Today on the Paranormal Pool, we share our own personal ghost stories and ask the question, did that just really happen? Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Pool. I'm Heather.
And I'm Michelle.
And we are East Valley Paranormal. Welcome to the episode today of Ghost Stories.
Welcome, everyone. And we wanted to say thank you real quick at the start for your subscriptions and your shares and likes and your comments. And we really enjoy the messages that we've been receiving from everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So today, you guys, we are actually recording this episode in the Haunted Gallery that you may or may not have watched our live streams. This is our resident stomping ground for our hauntings, and we are recording in here today.
And this is also the subject of our Modern Hauntings podcast. So we are right here in the heart of it.
So if it's a little echoey, it's because we're literally in a art gallery.
We are. We absolutely are. And we're doing a few little recordings around us and see what comes of that.
Yes.
So I was wanting to know, ma'am, how your day was, because I know mine has been really freaking eventful. So if you wouldn't mind sharing it, how yours has been.
You guys, so I worked today for just like 4 hours, and I drove home, and I stopped by Wendy's, and we've had a lot of rain here in Arizona, and our grounds just can't handle rain. It's just not used to it. And there was like a big pothole at the end of the drive-through, but like it wasn't like it was like it literally like a start of a sinkhole. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
like
wow.
It looked scary, and I was like, am I gonna get it? It was like on the corner, but the manager of Wendy's was taking a broom, and there was water filling up in this pothole. Like there was water coming out of it. And he was taking the broom and pushing the water back into the hole with rocks and dirt and part of the asphalt from the parking lot. And he was trying to push it back into this hole. You guys, I swear to God, it was the start of a sinkhole. I've never drove out of there so freaking fast in my life. I grabbed I was like, give me my fries. And I like, take off. Because I was so scared. I was like, my whole, like, you ever seen those videos where like the car is like dangling?
Whoops. Sorry, guys.
Have you ever seen the part like, okay, so have you ever seen where the car's like dangling in the sinkhole, right? Like it's just like,
yes.
Like in those movies where it's like, I picture myself driving, but then it like opens, and all of a sudden I'm like tipping backwards, like I'm going up freaking Splash Mountain or something, and I'm like trying to figure out like I'm gonna crawl to the dashboard to balance the car. And then I'm just gonna like take my elbow and punch out the front window.
It's like a scene from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and I'm gonna punch out the front window, just roll out the hood like the fucking Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad you did not fall into the sinkhole.
So that was my afternoon. How was yours?
Well, my afternoon actually started, I guess, a few days ago. And I don't even know if I should make this long story short, but I was driving around delivering food, and I found this very white, very odd looking, did not belong in a pile of trash, sort of package, and pulled it out. Turns out it was a wedding album that belonged to some people, and I had gone to sleep on the knowledge that I posted the photo, and hopefully we would find those people somehow through the power of Facebook. And 15 minutes after I posted it, I was asleep and the people were found.
That's so crazy.
So, and even today the news contacted me to see if we could do a story about it. So it's been a really interesting day. It's been a very interesting day today.
It has been really cool to read on Facebook. I feel like it's like a telenovela, is that what they call it?
Right.
Like it's so dramatic, like people are like, oh my gosh, and like so many people have responded to that post.
It's
like
been a lot.
It is a feel-good story, and like I feel like the news needs feel-good stories, because damn, Sam, there's a lot of depressing junk out there.
There is.
All right, Michelle, what is your spooky story that you have?
Oh gosh. So I will actually go back to my early childhood growing up in Chandler. And it was near Alma School in Elliott. I don't know what was there prior except for a few farms around, but there was just one afternoon, I was sitting in the living room watching TV and turned to my right, and a man ran out of the wall directly at me, almost right through me. Like he ran through me, the chair, and everything. And I was so terrified because he looked so real. Like he literally stepped through the wall and ran at me like at full speed. Wow. So much so that I called my best friend, and her mom answered the phone. And she actually thought that I had an intruder, so she called the police, and they ended up at my house.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a thing. I was 14. It was pretty freaking scary. But in that house, I've also had other, like, I've seen my mother there, and she's passed. I've seen all of our animals that have passed have been seen there at that house. So I think Arizona just has a really interesting hold on energy and stories.
I think like seeing spirits as a kid, like at one moment you kind of feel like it seems so real, and I guess because we're so desensitized to it now. Actually, you know what? No, I call bullshit on myself, because when I saw the apparition of the kid in the cabin, I literally had that moment. Like I was like 6 again. You know what I mean? Like
and scared.
And I always thought I'd do the badass cool thing and just grab my camera and be like, I'm gonna record like the professionals. And you guys, all I did was stare at this little boy blankly, blink, blink, blink like a cartoon, and just slowly got back into bed and pulled the covers over my head, thinking, okay, maybe I'll just go back to sleep. Anyway, but I think like as a kid, I remember being at my grandmother's farmhouse. My grandmother was a psychic. She was a very annoying one. She would tell you anything that happened before it happened, even if you did not want her to tell you, she was going to tell you. So she had this 2-story, actually I think it was 3-story farmhouse, and there was a flight of stairs. She'd always told me, don't go upstairs. So I always played downstairs, and I was taking a ball and throwing it up the stairs and just having it bounce back off the wall. Like, just like those balls you get like at Target or like, at the grocery store, they have the big bins. Yeah. And I was throwing this ball and it was bouncing back, and it come down the stairs, and I throw the ball and it bounced back, and I threw the ball again and it just like stopped. It hit the wall and just dead stopped like on the landing. And I was like, oh shoot. You know what I mean? I was like looking at it, and I was probably like maybe 6. I want to say I was in maybe kindergarten. And I waited, and I was like, okay, it's not coming back down. So I went ahead and went up the stairs. And as I went up the stairs, the first landing was like it was like, it wasn't a landing. It's really weird. It was like the first floor, but it was a short floor. And then it turned and went back up another flight of stairs. Anyway.
Yeah, like they split the staircase.
Yeah, it was really weird. So I went up and I went to grab the ball, and I looked, and under the door, a light was on, and I could see shadows on the floor, like people were walking. And I was like, oh, maybe it's one of my aunts. And so I opened the door, and as I opened the door, I was in this room with like cots, like a bunch of different cots, and men in cots, and women walking around with trays, and they were whizzing by me, and I just remember dodging everyone, and there was all these wounded men, and I was scared, but I was just really confused, because I was like, who are these people in my grandmother's house? So I heard my grandmother call my name. I stepped backwards out. She came up the stairs, shut the door. She yelled at me for being upstairs. I told her what I saw, and she just was so mad at me, and she said, I told you not to go upstairs. So I did not know at the time that my grandmother's house was haunted. I didn't know until later when I told my mom about that experience, and we actually didn't go back that much often because my mother was terrified of her as it is.
Oh no.
So we didn't go back, and so we started inviting her to our house, which she was creeping everybody out. We didn't have a holiday where she was like, we're like, oh, let's play a board game, and she's like, let's have a seance.
Right. Yeah.
No matter what the holiday was. I remember being in a park at Easter and her wanting to raise a picnic table. She was like, I can do it. And when my mom was like, she's crazy, whatever. But it was just a weird experience as a kid to like, and I that image of all those people in her house will like probably forever be burned in my brain. And not to go upstairs when you are not supposed to.
Yes. As a little, I do remember being at a funeral and having very deep conversation for a 5-year-old with a man who wanted people to be happy. Turns out I got in trouble for talking to a lady about how he wanted her to be happy because apparently I mentioned his name. I do remember a detail, I forgot about that. I went home to where we were staying and I remember sleeping all the way through a massive dust storm. And I slept for 12 hours, and it was the first time in my life I had ever done that. My mom made serious mention of it. And I just wonder if that was the first time Spirit ever really spoke to me, in person. Because he was very real to me. I wouldn't have even thought anything of it until I got in trouble. And honestly, I don't even think I pieced it together until much
that you were talking
later.
To the man
that
was dead.
That was actually dead. Because I didn't realize I was at a funeral. I was just a kid at church.
Yeah.
Why were people crying? I wasn't completely sure. I mean, at 5, what do we know about
I
death?
think we're so... I remember being at my great-grandmother's funeral, and, you go up and they have the little stairs, and you stepped on them, and she always used to, knit crocheted blankets for me and dresses for my dolls and stuff. She was a badass. She had no legs. That's all I remember about her. But I crawled up there and I don't remember this story. Well, I remember what happened afterwards, but I don't remember this part. My family always tells me about this part, that I looked over the edge of the casket and I looked back and I said, you guys don't worry about it. She's alive. She just smiled at me. And they were like, oh my God, get her out of there. And I'm like, hey, you guys. And I'm like, you guys. And I'm yelling, you guys, hey, don't worry. She's fine. She just smiled at me.
How old were you?
I'm trying to think. I had to have been about 5.
Isn't 5 that magical time?
I don't think I was 4 because I remember being old enough to run around and know and also know hey, I'm gonna get in trouble. Because afterwards, my aunt and my uncle, who are only 9 and 10 years older than me, or 8 and 7 years older.
Oh gosh, so they were teenagers.
Yeah, we took a gurney from the morgue and rode it down the thing that the chute.
Oh no.
We got into the room and we went into the death chute and was riding this gurney like a freaking car, and I was on the bottom and my aunt was on the top and my uncle was pushing it.
Oh my God.
And he was jumping on, and then one of the pastors or I don't know, whoever was there, the holy man, stopped us and he's like, you guys can't be in here. And I will never forget, my aunt flipped over on the table and went, dead roach. And that's all I remember. That's all I remember from that story, is riding the gurney, getting in trouble, and my aunt turning around and flipping on her back and going, dead roach, and acting like a dead bug. And my family doesn't take death very seriously. We always have something really weird that happened.
Holy smokes.
I remember when my son was 4 and he was like, Grandma came last night, and I worked nights. And I was like, oh, she did? She came over, thinking it was my ex's mom because she came over a lot. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, how's she doing? And he goes, I said something about Cheryl. And he goes, no, Mom, your mom. And he doesn't even know who my mom is. She passed way before, know.
Right.
So it was just weird that he was like, no, Mom, your mom. And I was like, what? It was he had did that a couple times at the age of 4.
Yeah, That's great. One of my youngest, one day we were driving, actually, ironically, from the place my mom eventually ended up dying. Went to go visit her there. And as we're leaving, I'm buckling him in, and he's 4 or 5. He's not quite in school yet.
Yeah.
So he's with me during the day. And I'm buckling him in, and he says, Mom, when the little boy runs out in front of the car, you got to stop. And I'm like, okay. And he grabs my face, like, Mom, you have to stop when the little boy runs in front of the car. And I said, okay. So I'm driving my old Rabbit. I got this 76 Rabbit, right? So I've got these door handles that fall off because of the little clip thing that holds it on.
Yeah.
So I got like a wrench, or I've got a door handle I got to slide on and then,
Yeah.
roll down my window. And we're going, and this is I pass here all the time. It's on Broadway and Gilbert. I feel like it's Gilbert. And I drive through the light, and I'm going, and this little boy runs out in front of the car, and it's just getting dark, so the sun is like just about gone. I don't know how he made it through all the car. I don't know how. It was freaking magic, because I stopped. I'm screaming. I'm trying to get my window down, screaming at him to stop because I see more cars coming.
Yeah.
So I'm screaming in my car, and Shane is the whole time, you said you'd stop, you said you'd stop, and he's yelling at me, and I'm stopping.
Right.
But I'm also like doing all these other things, and he made it to the other side somehow.
Yeah. I think it's so weird. I think kids are so in tuned. It's no different than the gallery that we're sitting in now. A lot of little kids will come in and go exactly where the paranormal, it's like they have a beacon. It's like, beep, 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 haunted closet. And you're like, whoa, like it's across the room. Like it's the farthest point.
Yeah, but they're always drawn to
They're
it.
always drawn to this side of the room.
We always watch where the little kids are drawn when we're places.
That happened yesterday.
Yesterday, we were at a location downtown here in Mesa where we investigate a lot. And there was this little bitty, and this little bitty was drawn to the basement. Now, I know that they set up a big light thing down there, so that might have been why she was drawn to the very Alice in Wonderland-esque basement. But I constantly hear they're always drawn, why, to this corner?
Yeah.
Like, why? And they'll come over and talk. Oh my gosh, not a month ago, there was an event happening in here, and I beelined for this little one as he was yelling at the door because he said someone was knocking from the inside, and he thought it was one of his brothers. So he was yelling back, just open the door. But there was no one in there. I literally opened that door and to see.
Wouldn't you shit a brick if the whole door just came flying open and no one was there?
And nobody was there. Holy smoke. Can you imagine?
And that has happened here, where the door is flung open.
Yeah.
Not the door for the closet, but the front door. And it's a handicapped accessible door. So when you push it, it's like real slow and it kind of opens on its own. That thing flew open as if it was broken. Just bam! And hit the wall. And I was like, what the heck? And I was just stared at it forever. Like, did anybody see that? Did anyone? Anyone? And then everyone looked at it and then just turned and kept talking. And I was like, that was weird. That was so weird.
I feel like I know and I don't want to say desensitized. I don't want to use that word because I don't feel desensitized to the stuff that happens around us. We're just not shocked.
Yeah.
We're just not, like, something could fall right next to us, and for the most part, except for the other night, for the most part, we will stoically just sort of turn
real slow
and see what it is, right?
And be like,
so
who knocked what over?
Right, we'll be scoping it out to see what happened. But the other night, we were doing a photo shoot for our collaboration that we've already spoken about a bit with Writables for the downtown tour, and we were at the bungalow.
Yes.
And we were doing the photo shoot with the amazing permission from the amazing owners of the bungalow for the Writables.
Shout out to Tina.
Shout out to Tina. And honestly, it was really great, and thank you so much for that if you're listening. But the sprinklers were coming on. And at first, I feel like I was like, no, it's just sprinklers. And then Parker, I mean, I'm almost 5'8", and Parker, I think he leapt over my head, which
the sprinklers kicked out in the backyard.
It made the weirdest noise.
It wasn't even near us, though. I mean, like, even if it was something, they were like, we thought it was a snake. And I'm like, even if it was a snake, there is a brick wall between us and the snake.
With the way my hearing is, it sounded like it was literally right at my feet. So I was running, and I ran, and I should have worn boots because I wouldn't have run if I'd have worn boots.
All of a sudden, I look around and I have a fog machine in my hand. Everyone's gone except for Shane, who's on stilts. So where's he going?
Did Sandy run too?
Yes. Did we? Everyone took off. So I'm standing there with a fog machine and like just in the dark, in this dark, creepy corner of this old freaking house. And I'm just sitting there like, well, okay. And then I look back and Shane's on his stilts with his like
probably the only reason he didn't.
Yeah, and he just was kind of like shaking his head like, well, that just happened. And I was like, oh God.
But some of the creepy stuff is funny. Some of it is.
It is funny.
Well, because I remember, I cannot forget the time when they were like, Heather, come here. And you were like, ugh.
Yeah.
That was such a good one.
Or the time when Michelle thought we had an app running. Like,
oh my God.
Like if you're familiar with ghost equipment and like ghost apps, there's the app Necrophonic. And it has a database filled with words and like, it's not even words, it's like sounds. And Michelle thought we had that on because we were getting so many EVPs. She's like, what app are you guys using? And we're like, no, we recorded it. She's like, I know, but like what app? On what app? And we're like, we use voice recorder. And she's like,
they were like, voice memo, you stupid bee. And I'm like, oh my God, my face. It was my face because I really
realized like, oh, those are actual.
Well,
EVPs.
because they kept repeating, and that's why, and that's something that we've noticed. The way we record, they do repeat as though to make sure we can hear them.
Yeah.
So it kept repeating, and I was like, no, that's BS. There's no way that that's actually happening. I was sure shit.
As kind of some story that's unexplainable. Like either it's like a ghost story or a UFO or just a deja vu.
Or a glitch in the Matrix. I watched a lady cut a lemon and then the lemon wasn't cut. That kind of stuff. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has a story that's like out there that you can't explain. And we would love to hear yours. So tell us. I mean, we would love to compile a bunch of ghost stories. That'd be great to do for maybe Halloween or something. Have a ghost story, like share, like around the campfire thing. Did you just hear a woman talk?
I didn't, but I've No, it's okay. I've been actually hearing a lot of weirdness over my shoulder, but I wasn't really sure if it was just...
As I was talking, I felt like it was talking over me. That's why I was like, what? Sorry, guys.
She's like interrupting.
Should I
Well, maybe we'll hear it.